So you may have seen recently that the Cardano Foundation put out a post about ICANN and domain names such as .cardano or .ada. And this got me really excited. I've always wanted a Cardano specific domain name, and luckily I have an expert here that has been working in this space and also consulting and advising with the Cardano Foundation about this particular announcement and what they're planning here. And I have Chris joining me from Blink Labs to talk all about it. Chris, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pete.
So first off, I think we got to talk about this particular announcement and what the Cardano Foundation is on about here. Can you explain to us normies what it is, what it's all about, and what it actually means?
Sure. So on the internet, all websites, everything has a name, right? And, most people are aware of it. They think of something like, a .com or something like that, like x.com, for example, to go to X or Twitter. And people know about these things. Well, that com is actually a top level domain. And what that means is it's managed as a unit, and it's managed by ICANN. And certain people are able to be essentially the hosting companies for that. And so every now and then, ICANN has opened up to allow new domains. And the last time that new top level domains came around, we got some new ones like .google or .blog, things like that were more generic or company specific top level domains. ICANN is now opening up applications again for this. Now, it's been 13 years since they last did this, so it's a very rare process. And so one of the things that the Cardano Foundation is attempting to do is looking to get community support for going to bid on these top level domains. The way that it works with ICANN is there's multiple different reasons why you might request a top level domain, right? Like a big company, for example, could do it like Google, or like I said, like .blog is a much more generic top level domain. One of the other ways is via community. So that is what the Cardano Foundation is trying to do, is trying to drum up community support via an info action on chain. So using it as a poll, as a vote, just as it's designed to do, to gauge community sentiment. And they're going to use that as evidence with ICANN to apply as a community and to show that they have community backing. So that's a little bit of the proposal itself, but now I can kind of explain why these things are important, right?
So it's not exactly a treasury withdrawal or going down that path. This is purely a governance info action to get the support of the community and the numbers. That's what they're after.
Correct. The Cardano Foundation wants to spend their own money for this entirely. Now, real quick, before I kind of delve back into DNS, I just want to real quickly talk about like intellectual property. And another reason why this is important, aside from utility, is the Cardano Foundation owns the Cardano trademarks and name, right? So it's extremely important to keep hold of this kind of IP. And, someone like the Cardano Foundation, that works with the Cardano and with the community should be someone that holds this IP. And with that in mind, these top level domains and this new application that's happening with ICANN is an opportunity where someone else could potentially get IP that maybe should belong to Cardano Foundation, things like that. And that is the ADA, .leda and .cardano namespace, right, in DNS. Is those are things that we want to be associated with Cardano and the ADA coin. So, from a pure intellectual property standpoint, right? Like, this is some of the most valuable property on the internet. People don't think about domains in that way, but domains are the original NFT. They really are, right? They're the original thing that people were buying, speculating on, trading on. They're unique, right? You can only have one of a domain, and that sort of thing. Top level domains are even more unique than that because they're so rare to be able to create. So being able to not only own that IP, but then also being able to build off of it with second level domains, is essentially the almost like exponential to just the domain ownership itself, right? Because you have the domains and then the ability to create subdomains. So all of that additional namespace, so if Cardano Foundation has the .cardano top level domain, you could have learn.cardano.
It does open up a lot of opportunities and all these branding exercises and all sorts of things that we can do with it. So
Right.
I'm pretty interested in what could come out of this. And I have to look back. My very first job that I ever got was actually for a company that purchased domain names
Mhm.
and flipped them. So they got in early in the early 90s, bought up tens of thousands of domain names and were flipping them on the market. So yeah, I'm very well aware of this, and it could very well happen if this happens in the Cardano space with the .cardano and .ada as well. So we'll see what happens there. Well, actually, I could tell what will happen there with the type of community that we have. I know exactly what's going to happen there. But so how does this tie into some of the work that you guys have been doing? I've been watching ages ago that you've been working with something called Handshake,
Mhm.
and I've been trying to tee up an interview about it as well, but it wasn't quite ready yet. But I think it's pretty prime now to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
this and some of the lower, the next part of the tech tree, the tech stack here, and especially what you guys are doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just real quick, kind of an aside. One of the things that typically happens with a lot of people building Web3 projects is they're extremely ambitious. So this is like the case with Handshake, is it's extremely ambitious. And what I mean by that is they're trying to completely replace a current system, right? So ICANN is a centralized authority that is responsible for these names, right? The top level domain names. Handshake is a decentralized system that is a proof of work blockchain forked off of Bitcoin. That's essentially a implementation of Satoshi's Namecoin vision. And the idea it was to decentralize the root of DNS. So essentially to replace
Gotcha.
ICANN.
Okay.
Now, they've purposefully done a lot of work to make sure there's not overlap, right? But there's been very, very little work to actually integrate these two things. So our work that we've been building that was paid for via Catalyst and voted on by the Cardano Foundation, so they've been supporting this kind of work for a long time, was to build essentially I'm going to say a trustless bridge, but that's not exactly what it is. But the ability for Handshake domain owners to be able to bring those domains and mint on Cardano and then sell second level domains on Cardano. And this was all of the smart contracts and infrastructure necessary to support that is what we've been building. So this links, essentially a Web3 root with a Web3 second level domains. The advantage and the things that come about here now with the Cardano Foundation going to ICANN and purchasing these domains is they're getting it in the traditional old root of trust. Well, we also have the Handshake domains and have secured the Handshake domains for .ada and .cardano. So now we can point all of them at the same place, right? And essentially merge the Web2 and Web3 stacks here, where we can store .ada and
Right.
.cardano domains on Cardano. Cardano is the backing store for these domains, but they can be sold in the traditional marketplaces. Like you might be able to buy it on
Wow.
GoDaddy or anything like that, right?
Wow.
Because that's the advantage of having it from ICANN. So we're able to start trying to merge the old with the new, right? One of the problems with using non-ICANN domains is it's very hard to get SSL certificates, and it's definitely not built into browsers. So this is essentially something that's required in the modern world. And this is when I talk about like root and I talk about trust. A lot of these things are built off of those. So having the ability to link up the new system with the old system at these integration points, right, at .ada and .cardano, will allow us to further, like the Web3 side of things. And, there's a lot of things that can happen. And this is purely speculative here. There's no talks or anything here to talk about this, but I'm just saying For example, Brave has just recently added Cardano wallet support directly into their browser, which means that it can resolve Cardano transactions and things on the Cardano blockchain. Well, it's not a stretch whatsoever to add the ability to resolve domains directly off of the native assets that are being built onto the Cardano blockchain. So there's a possibility for non-ADA, non.Cardano things to be brought into the forefront, essentially, and kind of ride along with this by merging the two of them.
Wow. Okay. This is pretty big.
I mean,
This is
I believe so.
yeah, it's crazy because
Yeah,
like uh, the normal person wouldn't be going to somewhere on chain to mint a domain name. They just don't understand that. But they've
right.
heard of crazy domains. They've heard of GoDaddy. They've heard of all these major hosting companies, and the local fish and chip shop down the road will engage a web agency maybe, and they'll tell them, register your domain name here. So
Right.
that front end portal for all these users just makes sense for them. And to link that through back on chain, and create that kind of ecosystem, I think is brilliant, absolutely brilliant there. So yeah, I guess you guys have been pretty busy over the last year trying to integrate that and get that all working. How far along in the process are you now?
Well, so the second level domains on Cardano, we had a proof of concept running on the pre-prod network actually at Rare Evo last year. So we've had it operational on chain for quite some time. We had a Catalyst proposal to take that and to update it because the original version that we had was, let's say, fully trusted. We were only going to work on domains that we already owned, top level domains that we already owned from Handshake. So now we are adding essentially that trustless part that I was talking about, which is the ability for us to prove ownership on Handshake using using smart contracts written in ICANN. So we've been rewriting these contracts that were originally written in Plutus TX. We're rewriting them in ICANN with Plutus v3, which allows us to prove signatures from Handshake because it uses signature type same as Bitcoin. So all of the work, for Bitcoin interoperability and things like that that have happened on Cardano apply to Handshake also. So we're able to use a lot
Oh,
of the
cool.
same methodologies because it's a fork of Bitcoin, right? The code is. So it allows us to do a lot of the same things. It uses the same signature types, this sort of stuff. So we've built we've built the original version on on just the Cardano side. And now what we're basically doing is building all of the how do we get a Handshake token into this system trustlessly, right? Where someone can lock it in and then we're able to prove it without us having to necessarily do any work other than prove that happened, right, on chain. So they'll be able to lock up their own token, their own domain from the Handshake side, and then be able to mint the token on the Cardano side without, asking our permission, essentially, right, by locking it into our contracts. So we're building a example marketplace for this. And the reason why I say example marketplace is we're just going to show off a domain that we already own, very similar to the previous system, because that's kind of what's necessary for us to show that the thing works end to end. It's always hard to demonstrate infrastructure. So we decided to make like an example marketplace for Catalyst to show off the infrastructure. But the idea is people should just be directly integrating with our smart contracts for these domains. They don't have to use any UI or API or anything that we provide.
Yeah.
All of it will
Yeah.
be via the smart contracts, which makes it essentially just infrastructure. So I would say that's probably maybe like 50% of the way done, the smart contract side. The name server that we built specifically for reading the data off chain, indexing it, and serving it. The Cardano side has been done for quite some time, as I said, and we've been building the Handshake side. And what that essentially means is we're writing a light node / indexer for Handshake. So we're writing code to talk to the Handshake protocol and all of that sort of stuff, so that we won't have to use any other nodes. Our name server will be able to talk to both Cardano and to Handshake and actually to ICANN. So it'll be able to merge the three of them into a single server capable of serving the data from all three of them and blending it and merging it. And that's kind of like the secret sauce, so to speak, even though it's not It's all open source. We've been building it for some time. You can go check it out. But the DNS server, with that in mind, I would say, like, let's say 75% complete, going through the Handshake stuff. But we have a fully working DNS system already using the Cardano side. And so purely on the Cardano side, it works entirely. And we're now adding in all of the Handshake side, because originally we were building it and we were going to sell domains that we already owned only. And then we decided, it's like, well, why do that? It's like, once we've already built 90% of the work for Handshake, why not build the rest of it and allow anyone that has domains on Handshake to bring them?
It just blows my mind, all the possibilities here. But I'm trying to understand also, like, how's this compared to other Web3 domains out there, such as like,
Sure.
unstoppable domains or things like that, because, they've had a big marketing push. A lot of people hold those like .eth domains. How's this compared to that?
The primary one is interoperability. So ENS, unstoppable domains, all of these things, they require you to, for lack of a better way of saying it, like, go all in on Web3, right? Like, you have to read from smart contracts and all of this sort of stuff to be able to be able to read that data. So it's not integrated with the classical DNS system at all. It's a separate system. And this is kind of what was the original state of Handshake, right? Like, it's a fully separate system. So you have to adopt it separately. It means that someone has to choose to adopt this new system and probably go through a few steps, right, to be able to start using it. And that's been the main issue. So one of the first things that we decided was we were going to write our own DNS server, which will do that work for you. So, and we're going to offer it as a service, so people can, access our DNS servers, or more importantly, they can easily, like, run their own and get the same data out of it. But the last important part is then it serves it over classical DNS. So you don't need any software that is, written for Web3. You don't need anything that needs to know anything about blockchain or anything like that. Anything that works with DNS that's been made over the past 40, 50 years, right, will be fully compatible and work out of the box. That's the idea. So by providing that additional piece of software, it allows for people to be able to easily serve up our data and all of our stuff without having to write it themselves. So there's a lot to be said about lower friction. So if someone, wanted to be able to, for example, integrate unstoppable domains, they need to either talk to the smart contract directly, right, meaning write blockchain software, or talk to their APIs, or go and build their own server, in this case, that does one of those two things. In our case, we want to have it already available. So all you need to do is just run the piece of software and it's good to go. Right. And again, it's DNS, so it's easy, super easy to integrate into anything else. You just point delegation at it and you're done.
Wow. Okay. Are the Handshake people excited about this? Are they aware?
Yes.
Like, do they
Yes,
know what
yes.
you guys are building?
We've been talking with them for quite some time. Now, there is no Handshake people, so to speak. Very much like Bitcoin. There is no governance or anything like that. There's no foundation. There's just the miners, the developers, right? And the people that are using it and selling on it. So it's really, really very community. That being said, we do participate in the community. We've been keeping them apprised of, like, what we're building. A lot of these things, we've been showing them our code because they have interest in, a lot of the things that we're writing for other use cases. Because as I had mentioned, the indexer and things like that we're writing for Handshake requires us to write all the protocol code and all of this stuff in Go, which is the language that Blink Labs uses for all of our software. And that also allows other developers now to be able to take that and write additional Go tools and things like that off of Handshake. And there has been interest in that in the Handshake community. In fact, they still have for a very long time a bounty for someone to rewrite the Handshake node in either Rust or Go. And we will probably be about 75%, 80% there to writing a full node already, just from the work that we're doing. So the last part is essentially adding the proof of work consensus on top of it, which it's Bitcoin's protocol. So it's really easy and well documented. So like, for example, in comparison to writing a Cardano node, it's like 1/20th of the right? So I mean,
Okay.
it's very, very easy by comparison. So the goal will be is we will probably end up doing that and writing, like a full handshake, which will be a service to the community, but also allow us to help provide some of the things that have been missing. Because Handshake also has no treasury or no funding programs like Catalyst or anything like that. So development is very much businesses, self-funding for the purpose of commercial products.
That's
And,
tough. That's tough, but it does sound like that bounty is probably in your hands, considering you're doing so much work on it at the moment. But it sounds like an interesting community.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, like I said, I equate it to Bitcoin quite a lot because it really is very much like Bitcoin in how it's governed. For example, most recently they made some changes to the protocol, and the way that it works is they make changes to the protocol. It's essentially a feature flag that miners vote on by turning it on or off, and then blocks that they make, right, signal whether or not they voted for this, by putting the flag in the actual blocks, right? So it's which percentage, what percentage of mining now supports this, and like once it gets over a certain point, it's built so that it activates, right? At a certain block, at a certain block height, right? So once you reach a certain point of the miner threshold, it just starts taking effect, right, at a certain point, which is nice and interesting because it's such a simple form of governance. You don't have to poll anybody or ask anybody or do anything like that. It's simply, flip one bit in a config file and start minting blocks again.
If anyone out there hasn't seen the governance action yet, we've still got time to vote on it and give it support, but I'll put links down below. If you are a DREP yourself, or if you've delegated to DREP, please reach out to them and get them to look at this governance action. Show them this video interview so they get a better understanding of what it's all about as well. And hopefully we can get this one through, because I think this is an absolute winner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing to also note is this is the very beginning of the process. So if this gets voted, it will be Q1 at the earliest of next year before ICANN really starts moving. It'll probably be 2027 before things actually start to move. So this is a long-term vision, kind of a problem and proposal, right? So again, it's really just trying to get support because CF is willing to put in the work for this multi-year project, for .ada and .cardano, including, being the backing entity for contracts, anything like that might be necessary with ICANN. So it's definitely good to support it now. It might be another decade or more before they open up proposals again. So yeah, it's definitely a thing where we want to do it now rather than later.
All right. You hear that, everyone? Get behind this one and support it. Chris, thank you so much for joining me in this podcast and explaining everything about the proposal and everything that you're doing. Absolutely appreciate your time and all the work that you're doing for the Cardano ecosystem.
Oh, thanks, man. And thank you for having me on the show.